Setting boundaries is really about having healthy relationships. It's about having strong relationships. It's about protecting our relationships. But it is also about having our own emotional well-being, about caring for our own emotional well-being, and about living a life that is true to us. So boundaries is really about having balance. I find the main point of boundaries is balance within our own lives, really giving us the guardrails to remind us, like, we have only so much time in the day. And if we're saying yes to all of these things that we don't want to be doing, then we're at the same time saying no to the things that we do want to be doing. So every time we're overbooking ourselves or overscheduling ourselves, we're agreeing to things that we don't want to do, the first casualty there is our own peace of mind. We cannot be everything to everyone and expect that there is going to be anything left over. So it's really important that we understand, like, boundaries are about having good relationships, but they're also about our own emotional well-being. And the biggest challenge that we have in setting boundaries, the first challenge, I should say, we have many, is that we don't really know what our boundaries are. We're not very clear about them. So when we're being asked to do something that we don't want to do, or someone is treating us in a way that doesn't feel kind and respectful, we kind of freeze like a deer in the headlights. We're not sure what to do. We know we don't want it. We're pushing back, but we're just not crystal clear that a boundary is that someone's stepping over a boundary, or we're just not 100% clear that this isn't something I want to do. And so when we're frozen like a deer in the headlights, we always take the path of least resistance. We end up agreeing and just saying, yes, sure, I'll do that, even though I don't want to, only to regret it later. Or we allow someone to just treat us poorly, again, only to regret it later. So it doesn't change this pattern. It doesn't change this cycle. It just leads to more regret, more disappointment, and really feeling as though we don't have control over our lives. And so what I came up with setting boundaries is a document I call my terms of engagement. And this document is really addressing what it is that's important to us, our values, how we want to engage in the world, what we want our relationships to look like, how we want to communicate with others. We do want to engage in the world, but it's important that we also understand how we want to do this. How we want our friendships to look, the types of conversations that we're not willing to have, right? Conversations that maybe, gossiping or talking poorly about other people, or maybe it's political conversations, like things that just don't make us feel good and don't make us feel close, don't help us to connect with that other person. In fact, ends up creating some type of a wedge. And also understanding just our own limitations, because we all have limitations on time, on our energy, on money, on what we're able to do. And so the terms of engagement document, which we're going to do in the second half, is a document for us to know what it is that's important. It's not to give it to anyone else. It's not to send it out to your friends and get them to initial. It's so that you stop being wishy-washy. Because every time we're asked to do something and we're not clear about whether it's a boundary or not for us, we become wishy-washy. And we go into this, I don't know, should I go, should I not go? I don't want to offend them. And in that going back and forth and being wishy-washy, we end up, again, just agreeing because we think, the energy that it takes to do that going back and forth, right, is the energy that we waste, and that we end up then just saying we agree to it. And again, later regret it. But when we know It's on our terms of engagement. The moment you know someone's asking you to do something and you know it's on your terms of engagement, you don't like to engage in those types of activities, it removes all of the wishy-washiness, the indecisiveness. We're much more clear. Just it being on the list. It takes all of that wasted energy away when we're trying to decide whether we should be setting a boundary or not. The energy that we need to be able to set the boundary, because it does take energy. It takes courage to be able to say these things. And if it's a situation when someone is stepping over a boundary, maybe in the way that they are treating us, the way that they're talking to us, maybe they're putting us down, they're being disrespectful in some way, remember, they don't know what our boundaries are. Maybe it's even they're just popping over all the time, and that's not something that you're comfortable with. But they don't know this. And it's important for us, when it's happening, in the midst of the boundary, either being stepped over, or again, just knowing what it is that we want to do, it's important for us to know right away they're stepping over a boundary. So we can say something. Maybe they're speaking to us in a way that's putting us down, that's being somewhat aggressive or just disrespectful. And instead of going up into that wishy-washiness that we all do, that we've all done in the past, and thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't say anything, I don't want to offend them, maybe I should just let them treat me like that, right? All that wishy-washiness that prevents us from saying something. We know up front, I want kind and healthy relationships, respectful relationships. It's on my terms of engagement. This is not kind. This is not respectful. And so we eliminate all the wishy-washiness, and we just say right away, hey, I know that wasn't your intention, but that was really hurtful, the way you phrased that. And it's hard to say that. I'm not denying that it's hard to say that. But it feels so good when you walk away later and you knew you stood up for yourself. You said what you needed to say. Doesn't mean that necessarily they're not going to turn around and do it again 5 minutes later. But because you're clear that it's on your terms of engagement, you can speak up again. Hey, this is an example of what I was just talking about. Bring up a dialogue about it. It might be a situation where you don't know the person very well and it's just happened a few times, and you say, hey, I did tell you a couple times that felt like really disrespectful dialogue, the way you were talking to me. So I'm gonna leave at this point. Have a great day, right? And it's hard. It's hard to say that, but it is so empowering when we speak our truth, when we're being honest with ourselves about how we are willing to engage with others. We're not turning into doormats. We need to be able to speak up. But so much of us not speaking up is we're not clear about what our boundaries are, about what we want our lives to look like. And that's why doing the terms of engagement in a time when you're feeling more calm, more thoughtful, you're not being put on the spot right now to ask to be doing something, or for someone to be stepping over a boundary in some other way. You're able to be more thoughtful about thinking about, how do I want my life to look? How do I want my relationships to look? What's going to be good? What's going to be healthy for my own emotional well-being? We only have so much time in the day, and we want to make sure that we are using that time wisely, and that we're clear and we're decisive about what it is that we want to be doing, and that we're confident as well when we know, oh, that's on the list. So this is very much the filling out the terms of engagement is very much an exercise in knowing ourselves. Because surprisingly, we do not know ourselves very well. And often we're really even just working against ourselves in just little ways where we can get so easily fooled. when we're feeling really good, we're feeling really energetic, we just got some good news, you just finished a big project, you're feeling super high, everything's just, you're kind of at a high level 10 happiness, just everything looks great in the world. And in that state, we can agree to things that we normally wouldn't want to do. And it's important for us to know that when we're feeling extra energetic, when we're feeling extra good, to not agree to things that we know are on our terms of engagement, right? That we can know someone's asking us to do something. And if they're asking us to do it in that moment, if, as an example, I don't generally like to go out and eat. I live a very quiet life, very much a life dedicated to my spiritual practice. I don't socialize a lot. I don't drink. I don't date. I'm very much about living in tune with the Dharma. And it's very normal, though, for people to ask, hey, do you want to go grab a cup of coffee? Do you want to go have lunch? Do you want to go have dinner? And for me, a hard rule is definitely, I don't go out to dinner. So when someone asks me, I always will respond, I so appreciate being included, because I do appreciate being included, but I just don't go out for dinner. I don't go out in the evenings. But if in that moment I'm feeling particularly energetic and they're asking me in that moment, do you want to go grab a bite right now? It's like, yeah, okay, I'll go do it now. But I won't agree to something later, because I know that this high that I'm on right now from, again, maybe finishing some project, something, you got some really good news, and we all know how that feels really good. We have extra energy at that time. But to not make any plans in the future based on how we're feeling now. So again, it helps us protect ourselves against agreeing to things because we're feeling particularly good in that moment. And we know what happens when eventually that time arises, we think, why did I agree to that? I knew I didn't want to do that. Why did I agree? Because we were feeling really good. And we thought that high energy was going to last. And that is something to also consider when we're agreeing to things that are far off in the future. We are much more likely to say yes when something's far off. They've even done studies where if someone is asked to donate to a charity today and they say no, so they say, well, would you be willing to donate in 3 months? The percentage of people that are willing to donate in 3 months dramatically goes up. Because we always think if it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, we always think, oh, I'm sure I'm going to feel different by then. I'm sure I'm going to be wealthier by then, so of course I'll be willing to donate. Or even though I don't like going out to dinner now, I'm sure I'll probably be okay in a few months. And it's good for us to know ourselves. And so we're asked to do something far off in the future, and it doesn't mean we have to say no, because sometimes something might change and we're maybe a little bit just on the fence because it's something so far off in the future. But instead we can just say, let me think about it. I know generally I don't like to do things like that. I don't like to go out at night. Let me just think about it. Let me get back to you. Let me let you know. Because we're not trying to create walls with setting boundaries. We do want to be flexible. We do want to recognize that there's times when we do feel a little bit different. And there's also going to be situations where we do need to be more flexible. If it's something to do with work, there's a work function, and you're hardly going to go to your boss and say, my terms of engagement are that I don't go out in the evenings, right? You can't do that. Of course, you're going to have to say, yeah, of course, I'm going to go. Or it's a family event. And of course, you're going to go to the family event. Maybe even it's just a friend that you haven't seen for a while. And I've had situations like that where I will realize, like, this is an important friendship to me and I really haven't seen them in a while. And so, yeah, I am willing to go do that because it's important, this friendship. But in every time that we're going to do something like that, where we're being flexible, recognizing, like, not pushing back on it. I can't believe I have to do this. Because if for the majority of the time we are being really true to our terms of engagement, then we are finding more spaciousness, more balance in our lives, more calm, more emotional well-being. We're feeling better. And that's what gives us the energy to be able to be flexible when we need to. It's when we're being pulled in 50 different directions, and then one of these situations where we really do need to be a little bit more flexible, but we kind of drag our feet, and we're resentful that we've got to do it because we're tired, we're burned out, we're overwhelmed. And so it's, again, recognizing we're not trying to create walls here. We're not trying to be inflexible in any way. We're trying to live a life that's true to ourselves, a life that we need to live in order to be peaceful, to be more harmonious, to be kind, to be compassionate, to be able to follow our spiritual path, which requires a certain amount of time. So it's about honoring and protecting the life that we want, the life that we want to live, and the peace that we want to feel, having that balance, but acknowledging, yes, but how we engage in the world, we're more clear and decisive about how that is going to look. So this is a living document. It's something that I've done. I think I'm on my 5th or 6th iteration of, especially with doing the workshops, I'll often go down and rewrite my terms of engagement, because sometimes things tweak a little bit. Sometimes I'm adding some things on. I'm fine-tuning a little bit. But I also review the document. It's really helpful to review it, to just, it is so empowering to just immediately you're asked and you just go, oh, that's on the terms of engagement. So to keep the document close to close to you, to know this document, to spend some time with it, so that it really does help you to protect your peace of mind and to protect the life that you want to live. We know that if we're not doing it, we can easily get pulled in a million different directions. And we're not living the life that we want to live. And in Bonnie Ware's book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying, where she writes the number one regret that people had on their deathbeds were that they wished they had lived a life that was true to themselves, rather than the life that everyone else wanted them to live. I mean, think about that, right? Just that fear of not letting someone know, I just don't like to do that. I'm not comfortable with that, or I'm not comfortable with the way that we're engaging, or the conversations that we're having, right? Or the way that you're popping over all the time. Like the courage. We hear that quote and we kind of think we've got to do something really heroic and go climb Mount Everest. I would argue it's just that courage to live your life day in and day out, true to yourself, knowing that if you are true to yourself, if you have balance in your life, if you have peace, you are a kind and compassionate person. We're not doing this out of being selfish or being stingy. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's opening up our capacity to be kind and compassionate, to be more present. When we're living our lives authentically, we feel better. And I think our relationships really benefit from that. So we are going to write out our terms of engagement after the break. But there are a few important things we need to know about setting boundaries before we get to that. So I'll just check real quick in the comments before we go to the next session. Okay, so from Monica, your friend invited you to go on a boat today. It is extremely hot here, and I did not have the courage to tell her the truth. I told a little white lie and said I had a hair appointment because I thought she might not invite me again. I knew I'd be miserable because of the extreme heat. I did not have the courage to be honest. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that coming up as well. To not use lies. Never to use lies. That is not setting boundaries. There's no courage in that. And there is this fear. I'll address this a little bit. We're going to get to this again in the third section. There is always this little bit of fear of like, oh, they'll never invite me again. And so I need to tell this little white lie in order to make sure that they'll invite me again. And what I would argue is that you're getting bad advice, because it's kind of what we're going to talk about in a minute. We're getting advice from our ego when it comes to setting boundaries, not from the wisdom of our heart. And that's really the title of this workshop, Setting Boundaries with an Open Heart. It's knowing how to open our hearts and to access the wisdom that gives us the courage to be able to set boundaries in a way that we feel good. Because telling little white lies never feels good. We've got to keep up that little lie. You said you went to the hairdresser. What if she sees you later? Did you say the hairdresser? You had a hair appointment. And then she goes, it doesn't look like you had anything done differently to your hair. Right? Or something happened, she texts, or, it's just so easy to get caught up. And I think when we're really considering our own values of honesty and integrity, we do not want to start telling lies, even little white lies. And I get the motivation behind it. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's just a good example for us to remember, like, how you feel about it. Like, it probably didn't feel good. Doesn't feel good when we're doing that. And I know, like, a lot of people, even during COVID, for those of us that are introverts, that have been preparing for COVID our whole lives, people were thrilled to use that as an excuse. It's like, well, then what's going to happen when it changes? We don't want to use short-term excuses, even things like, well, I'm just really busy this week because, okay, you've got a big project. Okay, well, as soon as you're done then, maybe it's someone you don't want to see. And then you're back to square one. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And it's a great point. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up, Monica. And you're going to find the courage, because I promise you, the courage is in the terms of engagement, knowing what you're saying yes to, meaning your life, your being authentic, being honest, being authentic, and also in knowing how to access the wisdom of your heart. It's the ego that's saying, but no, you better tell this white lie because they won't invite you again. So you're compromising your principles, your ethics, because your ego is giving you bad advice, which is really the topic of the next talk. And I'll just go to V, that you were just told by an intuitive healer today that you're a people pleaser, especially in dating. And now the universe is on to you, V. Yeah, I mean, being a people pleaser, again, when we're falling all over ourselves to get people to like us, or just not speaking up for ourselves when someone's treating us inappropriately, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. And those aren't the kinds of relationships we want if they're based on us being a people pleaser. And especially in dating, the more that we come across as a people pleaser in dating, the more we push people away. We think we're pulling them closer to us, we're pushing them away, right? Because we'll fall all over ourselves, we'll let them cancel last minute, we'll let them treat us poorly. It doesn't bring the respect. They don't have respect for us, we don't have respect for ourselves. And so this is important. Yes, the universe is not giving you a pass on this today. You are definitely going to address this. And I think also, and I don't know, V, if you've been to my other classes before, but like coming into the heart, anything coming out of the ego is just, all that sense of separation, and I'm incomplete and I need someone else to complete me. The more we can live in the present moment, we can access the present moment through our hearts, which I think is a really big part of our practice, the more whole and complete we feel. And then when we choose partners, right, it's not because we're not trying to get them to fit into, get them to fit into something because we feel like we need someone. It's more we can be more, we can see if they fit. We're not trying to fit them into something. We can see if they fit because we're okay if we're on our own. It'd be nice, like if you want a partner, no problem. There's nothing wrong with wanting a partner. But no one else can complete you. No one else can complete you. Anyone who's here that's in a relationship will tell you their partner cannot complete them. Yes, it can be nice to have someone to share your life with and to go and do things, but only you can complete you. Only you can. Oh, V, and you have been here. Okay, great. Okay, good. I'll just go to Rish. Or actually, sorry, hang on. Yes, just Kimmy. The lies are a tangled web and self-deception. And if we've got to keep all those lies together, oh my gosh, even just the little white lies, it's very hard to be present if we're trying to remember the little white lies that we've told. That's not authentic. That's not living in tune with our spiritual path. Oh, Jessica, that's a tough one. Yeah, that you're having a massive 200-meter tower built across from you, noisy and ugly. You're selling your house without a real estate agent, I'm guessing. I don't want to tell potential buyers, but I feel bad, rock in a hard place. I'm going to ask you to go into your heart to see what's the right thing to do. I know it's hard being honest. It's hard, especially when it's going against our interests in that way. But Jessica, I promise you, your greatest interest is to your peace of mind, But when we get to the heart section and teaching you how to come in and really get that, access the wisdom in your heart, it will guide you. It will guide you. Okay, so Alice, how do you tell someone that you don't want to spend time with, that you don't want to hang out with them every time they text and say, let's get together? We're going to address that at the very end because I'm going to give you some things to say because that's a tough one, but also something that needs to be said. And I'm giving you a lot of verbiage in the end about how to do that. But again, we're going to hop onto the next couple sections because that's going to really help you see the path in giving you the courage and then, the courage and the understanding that this is what you need to do. And then also the practicalities of the language.